Here is today's featured headline in space. Another company is entering the commercial space station market. Today is December 17th, 2025, and you're listening to Space News First Up. Here are today's other top headlines. The Senate is expected to vote today on the nomination of Jared Isaacman to lead NASA. Indian space situational awareness company Digantara has raised $50 million as it expands into missile defense. OQ Technology says it has connected a commercial Internet of Things chipset directly to one of its low Earth orbit satellites. And Vantor, the former Maxar Intelligence, is partnering with Niantic Spatial to develop navigation technology for military platforms operating in GPS-denied environments.
First Up is produced by Space News, the industry standard for professional space journalism. Visit spacenews.com for breaking news, policy updates, and original analysis.
We begin today with news that another company is entering the commercial space station market. Max Space, a startup that has been working on expandable module technologies, announced Wednesday its plans for Thunderbird Station. The station would feature a single module that could launch on a Falcon 9, but expand to a volume of 350 cubic meters, one-third the size of the entire International Space Station, once in orbit. The company plans to launch a small prototype called Mission Evolution on a SpaceX rideshare mission in early 2027. The company sees its design as providing an advantage both in lower launch costs and with an internal layout that can be easily reconfigured. Former NASA astronaut Nicole Stott is working for Max Space as its lead astronaut to aid in the station's design. The Senate is expected to vote today on the nomination of Jared Isaacman to lead NASA. A schedule released late Wednesday included a vote planned on the nomination after up to 2 hours of debate. Isaacman is expected to win confirmation with the chamber's Republicans and some Democrats likely to vote for him. The vote would end a year-long saga that started with then-President-elect Trump announcing in December 2024 his intent to nominate Isaacman, only for Trump to withdraw the nomination at the end of May, just days before a confirmation vote. Trump then renominated Isaacman last month. Indian space situational awareness company Digantara has raised $50 million as it expands into missile defense. The company said Tuesday it raised the Series B round from several new and existing investors. Digantara has a network of ground-based sensors for tracking space objects and launched earlier this year the first satellite in a planned constellation to provide space-based tracking. The company has opened a U.S. office and is proposing to use its technologies to develop satellites for missile tracking applications. OQ Technology says it has connected a commercial Internet of Things, IoT, chipset directly to one of its low Earth orbit satellites. The Luxembourg company said Wednesday it used an unmodified low-power cellular module from Norway's Nordic Semiconductor, called NRF9151, which is typically used in tracking and monitoring sensors to communicate with one of its satellites. The company said the test shows that existing commercial IoT sensors can use its satellite network for communications without the need for hardware or software modifications. Vantor, the former Maxar Intelligence, is partnering with Niantic Spatial to develop navigation technology for military platforms operating in GPS-denied environments. The collaboration will focus on enabling air and ground platforms to navigate and coordinate when satellite-based positioning is unavailable due to jamming or spoofing, a growing concern for military operators. The partnership combines Vantor's visual-based navigation software for aerial platforms with Niantic Spatial's ground-focused visual positioning system, enabling drones, vehicles, and others to navigate without using GPS.
Discover your next mission in the space industry with the Space News Job Exchange. Visit jobs.spacenews.com to find top aerospace roles and connect with leading employers. And for employers, use discount code JOBEX for 15% off your next purchase.
In other news, an Ariane 6 launched 2 Galileo navigation satellites overnight. The Ariane 62 lifted off from French Guiana at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Wednesday and deployed the 2 Galileo satellites into medium Earth orbit nearly 4 hours later. The launch was the first time Ariane 6 launched Galileo satellites, and marks a return to using European rockets for the network after Ariane 6 delays forced Europe to launch 4 Galileo satellites last year on Falcon 9 rockets. The satellites were the last 2 built for the first-generation Galileo system, although 4 that were manufactured earlier are in storage for launches planned in the next 12 to 16 months. Airbus Defence and Space and Thales. Alenia Space have contracts to build larger, more advanced second-generation Galileo satellites. The Japan Times reports that a Japanese navigation satellite is stuck on the pad after a last-second scrub Tuesday night. The Japanese space agency JAXA said it scrubbed the H3 launch of the Michibiki 5 satellite because of a problem with ground equipment found seconds before the scheduled 9:11 p.m. Eastern liftoff. A sensor detected insufficient water levels in a sound suppression system at the pad, triggering the abort. JAXA did not announce a new launch date for the mission, which will place into orbit the latest satellite for Japan's quasi-zenith satellite system that augments GPS.
Share your company's news with the entire space industry through Stellar Dispatch, the press release service from Space News. Learn more and use discount code SD2106 for 15% off when you submit yours at spacenews.com/stellardispatch.
The Space Force and Rocket Lab have confirmed plans to launch experimental DiskSats on an Electron rocket this week. 4 flat disc-shaped satellites known as DiskSats are scheduled to launch no earlier than 12 a.m. Eastern Thursday from Rocket Lab's Launch Complex 2 in Virginia. The mission, part of the Defense Department's Space Test Program and designated STPS-30, was accelerated from an initial target of spring 2026. DiskSat was developed by the Aerospace Corp, with NASA funding as a potential alternative to the CubeSat standard. Each spacecraft is roughly 3 feet in diameter and shaped like a flat plate, optimized to fly in a low-drag orientation through the upper reaches of Earth's atmosphere. New Scientist reports that if satellites suddenly lost the ability to maneuver, they would start colliding with each other in orbit within 3 days. A Princeton University study examining growing congestion in low Earth orbit developed a metric called the Collision Realization and Significant Harm (CRASH) clock to see how long it would take for satellites to collide if they could no longer actively maneuver. The study found that prior to the deployment of Starlink satellites in 2019, the crash clock was 121 days, but now is just 2.8 days given the much larger number of satellites. However, spacecraft engineers note the scenario is hypothetical, as there is unlikely to be any case that would cause all spacecraft to lose the ability to maneuver that wouldn't also create much more serious problems.